about ready to kick off this webinar. Let me know when you're ready to record. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we have a very unique and diverse group of people all pulled together to help solve this financial inclusion puzzle that we all work so hard on. We have influencers, developers, end users, and volunteers from around the world. I was quite impressed with the variety and the global scope of our registrants today. I'm quite excited to have this kind of participation. I'd like to welcome you all to Mifos. Today we're going to spend some time talking about solutions. The most important thing we want to talk about are the challenges facing financial inclusion and what we want to solve and the community we're building it to solve these challenges. All of this in this webinar are work in emerging markets, and we all work towards serving the 3 billion unbanked. And these emerging markets are all about financial services. They need technology, they're digital payments, remittances, mobile money. And to be a modern financial institution, even in the most remote parts of the world, we need to have a modern, connected core banking system. And obviously, this needs to be extremely inexpensive. So today we're introducing you to the Mifos Initiative, a free and open source solution that organizations can download and customize to their market. It's free, it's open source, it's customizable, and it's supported by a global community of like-minded practitioners. So, without further ado, let me introduce your presenters today. I'm Dana Harp. I'm with the Mifos Initiative. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives. I come out of the U.S. credit union system with 25 years under my belt in the operational area. Cameron Goldie Scott is the CEO of Musoni Services, and they serve sub-Saharan Africa with a cloud-based and award-winning core banking system that they built on top of Mifos X. And actually they have the tablet and Android solution they built on top of Mifos X. Cameron will be presenting a little of their work and the outreach that they've been able to accomplish. It's kind of remarkable. Steve Thompson is a volunteer to the Mifos community. He is a digital financial services consultant, and he comes with years under his belt from the Canadian credit union system. And Craig Chilius is our executive director of the Mifos Initiative, and he'll be coming in at the end to wrap us all up. Today we're going to quickly go through who we are, lessons we've learned from the field, a little preview of the Mifos platform, and the best business action toolkits that we've developed for the communities. So who are we? This is a photograph actually from our most recent summit that we had, a global summit. And these are actual members of our community, many of whom are on this call. I thank you for joining us all. Good to see your names again. I could look at your faces while you're there. And we are a global community. Our sole mission is to speed the elimination of poverty through Mifos X, a free and open source financial platform to deliver financial services to the world's poor and unbanked. We emerged from the Grameen Foundation in 2011. And through generous support of Silicon Valley, we've developed and deployed an open platform that's now serving more than 3.5 million account holders. We bring the community as a thought leader. We not only have the open technology to solve the puzzles, we've also developed an open best business practice toolkit to help people close that last mile. We are guided by a remarkable board and other leaders from the financial technology and open source field, and we are a nonprofit organization based in the United States, and we have the 501c3 designation. So this is a little peek at what the Mifos system does. This is straight out of the box, a complete financial platform. You can download this in a matter of hours, configure it to your organization. This is your membership screen, customer screen, client screen, whatever you want to call it. It addresses the Know Your Customer with signature verification, with document upload verifications, and a general screenshot of what the status of Lupe here. You can see at a glance she's missed a loan payment. Everything else is green and good. Being an open, free, and customizable platform, this is what Mifos X looks like straight out of the box. This is what one of our deployment partners has done. And our deployment partners are those people who are in the field, in Ghana, in Zimbabwe, in the Southeast Asia, in India. And they have actually built businesses using the Mifos X platform. And this particular deployment partner has done a customization for their client. It's the same core system, but they've dressed it up, and I quite like what they did with this whole system. They've kind of upgraded the user interface all throughout the system, so it's very snazzy. Mifos X can be housed on the cloud, and it can be used on mobile devices. It can be housed on local servers. It can be housed on your individual PC. It functions at all levels. And by design, it is flexible, it is extensible, so that this is your platform, and you can easily, through the open API, make the connections you need to serve any external platform. We are, as I said, global. This is a little image of where we are now. We have 3.5 million clients that we're reaching, which is an exciting number, but such a drop in the bucket when you consider the 3 billion unbanked. We're in 41 countries, 125 financial institutions, and these are SACCOs, village savings groups, credit unions, microfinance banks. It's a variety because the system is so customizable. We currently have 40 local partners around the world. And in 2014, this is the cool thing about our organization, we had 120 contributing volunteers. 120 people just thought this was a great project and contributed either code, documentation, something to the community. And we had over 11,000 downloads of our platform from 150 countries. So people are looking at this saying, this is kind of interesting. Is this a solution for us? And we're finding more and more, yes, it is. That sounds like a lot. That's a big mouthful that I've gone through. And really, why do we do this? Why on earth do we give away free technology, build this community? This is exactly why. Marie Claire is a real person because someone gave her a small loan. She was able to build a business, then build a house for her 4 children, then build a second business so she could employ people in the village. A little bit of help empowered an entire village. That's why we do it, because we can make very impactful change by working together towards the same end goal. Now I'd like to bring Steve Thompson into the mix. Steve's going to talk to us about the credit union community, the Mifos community, and how we align. So Steve?
Great, thanks Dana. I think this is a great place to really pick it up around, while Mifos started with the microfinance community, a few of us volunteers and a number of customers out in the field have seen its its viability in the cooperative credit market, and as a solution that can be driven by an open source community. It fits well, I think, with the credit union concepts that we have of people helping people to help themselves. Next. Now, I don't want to get into a big, long, complete history lesson here on the credit union movement, but I thought that it'd be relevant to some of the people just to touch on a few points of history here to provide some context. I know for myself, by looking back and seeing where the credit union system has come in the last 150 years, since founding, or the last 100 years here in North America, we can really see, the kind of growth and impact that we can make in developing markets in a much shorter time frame, because we have all these lessons learned. We have shortcuts now. We have tools like Mifos, which can be deployed, fairly quickly. And I think that it's important, as they say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it definitely does rhyme. And so I think it's a good reminder here of how far we've come and how far we can help others. So if we look back, the Raiffeisen, the credit unions were founded in the 1850s, 1860s in Europe. The Raiffeisens were considered probably the first microfinance institutions in the world. They were serviced a poor rural class, and they were really the first institutions to prove, first banking institutions to prove that the poor could pool their money to lend, and more importantly, that the poor would pay back those loans once they were made. Here in Canada, even when we look at the impetus that brought Alphonse Desjardins to bring the credit unions to Canada. He was a clerk in the House of Commons, which is our Parliament or Congress, and he heard extensive debate going on about the usurious fees that the poor average person had to pay. Numbers like 48, 60%, the kind of numbers that we hear about in the microfinance community. This is what we were experiencing in Canada just 100 years ago, a far cry from, the 2 to 5% that we can get retail loans at today. So again, by working together and building a strong financial services sector with a strong, particularly second tier of credit unions, credit cooperatives, I think that we can really make a change globally. And I think that the other thing that I see a lot of comparators to Mifos is just the growth that the credit union system has seen, fueled by sharing and collaboration. Started with a lot of model legislation, regulation, which went from province to province, state to state, country to country. As we took what worked, built on it. Also created a lot of unique organizations that allow the community to still maintain its autonomy, but to come together. Things like leagues and federations, corporate credit unions, or credit union service organizations. And I think all of these models are valuable in a Mifos context to say, how can we use this extensible cloud-hosted technologies to empower financial services. And the other little model that I've seen and is very apropos to a community like Mifos, where we have development partners working around the globe. They are in essence competitors to each other, but yet they work together because somebody building one part of the system for India, that has applicability to someone else in Africa or Southeast Asia or South America, and that this, so even though we're in essence competing, there's a strong collaboration aspect, and we can make it a much better product and community for everyone. Next. So along with that, we see, a fairly perfect alignment between what we're doing as this open source community and what the credit union community does. We have voluntary membership. You don't have to be part of the Mifos Initiative to use our software, but certainly we encourage you to get involved. Our development is driven by our partners and then assisted by volunteers. Every year we meet to set our priorities, but at the same time, individuals can go out and innovate on the platform, and those innovations can be brought in. The whole objective is to lower our costs by sharing the workload and sharing it globally. We still allow all of our partners and all of our end clients to have the autonomy and independence that they need to run their businesses. And yet we as a community provide the education, the training, the information needed to deploy the technology, to develop it, and to build businesses around it. And of course, all of this is driven by a concern for our community and a concern to cooperate globally. Next. So when it comes to collaboration, what are kind of the opportunities? And today we have two audiences on here. We have some people in the developing countries, and we have others in the developed world. So I would like to split these out. Certainly for those people working in market, anything that we can do to encourage you to share best practices amongst yourselves. The tools out there for collaborating, for sharing knowledge are immense. They're free. We have many of them, and we're using them for the Mifos community. So there's lots of things that you can do just simply sharing knowledge and best practices, but there's also a lot that you can do to collaborate on technology and operations. To take a platform like Mifos, which, while you can deploy as a small financial institution, if you can get a few partners together, a few other credit unions or SACCOs in your region, maybe it's a league or that comes together, and customize the product to meet your market's needs, your regulatory and legislative requirements, and support each other, you can then share the costs of that development, spread the workload amongst yourselves. So consider a credit union service organization, a QSO model, or consider partnerships with technology providers. And we have an excellent one on the call next, and we'll be hearing from them shortly. Globally, there's a lot of things that us cooperators can do. We have a lot of expertise that we can lend to a project like this, and it could be operational. As a credit union operator, Dana was an extraordinary volunteer before joining the team. She was constantly reminding us that the solution doesn't just end with the technology, that it needs to be operationalized by the implementing organization. And that's something that can get lost with the technical people. And certainly having the expertise of people who've been there and done that, who have, what I call the gray hair talent and 30 years of credit union experience, who've seen credit unions go from paper-based to mainframe to mini to PC and now to cloud, who have some of those battle scars. There's a lot of great knowledge that can be shared and can help us leapfrog some cycles. Of course, if you don't, we can always use technical assistance, both development and operations. Again, the work doesn't just end with the software release. It needs to be deployed, and importantly, needs to keep running so that our clients can build their business on top of it. And lastly, there's things that we can do as a community. It's volunteering on things like today's webinar, and helping be an evangelist, and telling our story, helping out with the community. There's lots of tasks like fundraising and promotion and volunteer management, and things that just help the community as a whole run. Of course, if you don't have time and expertise, you can always give cash. And I know that with our ability to stretch our budgets at the Mifos Initiative, that if we could just get a large number of credit unions to each give a small amount, we could make a real difference globally in supporting the global cooperative community. And lastly, something that we can all do that doesn't take a lot of time is just to be an evangelist. So be an evangelist with us. What I love about the credit union community is that it's not about 6 degrees of separation. It's probably about 2 to 3 degrees. So if you think that what we're doing is a good thing, reach into your Rolodex and make some introductions for us. I know a number of people on the call have come out because of my reach out, and I appreciate that. But invite us to your conferences, or better yet, present at them, for us, and introduce, the Mifos community to relevant influencers and media, so that we can get the best audience reach possible and make the best impact that we can. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dana and to Cameron. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. That was nice. It's a nice perspective to see how the credit union community really works, or I should say the Mifos community really works like the credit union community. The credit union community's been around far longer, and it's extremely great to see that kind of aligned, so I thank you for that. I would like to say one thing I failed to mention at the beginning of this was that we have Ed Cable collecting questions. So if you have questions for any of the presenters, any of the topics, you'd like to elaborate on anything more, please put those into the chat box. Ed will be collecting all of those and will be aggregating them and addressing them at the end. So please don't hesitate to throw your questions out there in the chat. And as we've been talking about what are the solutions, we know our target, we know some of the pain, I wanted to pull this up and share it with you. Every year I look at the Banana Skins report, and this is an annual report put out by the Center for the Study of Financial Innovation. And every year there's a list of what are the highest perceived risks. And they fall kind of in this line. A couple years ago, governance was actually higher. So we see some progress made in tightening the governance of organizations, so that risk factor is dropping down the list, which is nice. But as a community, that's all of us here. That's not just the technology, but it's also utilizing that last mile toolkit. Together, we can clearly knock 14 of these off the list. There's some I don't think we can do. Maybe you, maybe other people on the call have some other ideas. But I want to turn this over now to Cameron from Musoni Services. They have done a remarkable job addressing some of the challenges for success in financial inclusion. And I'd like him to take you through the little story of Musoni and where they're headed and how they're doing it. So Cameron, if I can pass the reins over to you.
Yeah, of course, Dana. Thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, thank you so much.
No problem. Well, firstly, let me just start off by saying thank you very much to Dana, and thank you very much for Steve for the excellent introduction to Mifos and the community and the different partner organisations as well. It's an absolute privilege and pleasure to be here. My name is Cameron Goldie-Scott. I'm the CEO and founder of a microfinance software company called Musoni Services. Our goal is to revolutionise financial inclusion through technology, and we do that through a system that we call Musoni, which is a cloud-based affordable core banking system. And what we're trying to do with this technology is make it easier for MFIs to improve their efficiency, whether it's the kind of loan officer ratios, reduce their costs and back office overheads, and extend their outreach into the rural areas where the majority of the unbanked live. And a lot of those targets are equally applicable to microfinance organizations, SACCOs, asset finance companies, and credit unions, all of whom we work with. We're about 2.5 years old now, and I'll go into a little bit of detail now about some of the new technology that we've developed. But suffice to say, all of this has been built on top of Mifos X. So Dana, if you could just flick to the next slide, please. Yep, so aside from the core functionality, so for example, your clients and groups, your loans and savings, accounting and reporting, we also try and take advantage of the latest technologies, and in particular with mobile money technology. So we have integrated with lots of mobile money transfer services around the world, including M-Pesa in Kenya and Tanzania, Airtel in Kenya and Tanzania, EcoCash in Zimbabwe, Paynet and Payway, and Yo Payments in Uganda, MTN. We've integrated with loads. And what this does is enables the end clients, the end customers, to send and receive money over their mobile phones. So instead of doing a loan repayment in cash, they can just send their loan repayment or savings deposit over mobile money, and that's automatically reflected in real time in the Musoni system. And this brings huge efficiency gains. So far, we've processed a little over 3 million mobile money transactions, and we really have pioneered this in microfinance. If we could jump next. Another thing, because we focus so heavily on mobile, another obvious bit of functionality that we've added to Mifos has been the use of an SMS module. So we send out about 5,000 SMSs a day across all of the organizations using Musoni. And this could be anything from payment reminders. For example, if someone has a payment due tomorrow, then the system will automatically send them a message saying, "Dear Mr. Miner, your loan installment of X is due tomorrow." Or if they've missed a payment, let's say they had a payment due yesterday and they haven't paid it, then the system can automatically send a follow-up reminder. And we've seen huge impact on this, actually. We did a study with MasterCard a couple of years ago where we piloted the SMS module with a variety of SMS campaigns going out to 70 group members who were receiving the SMSs and 70 who weren't. And after 3 months, we had a look at the portfolio at risk, so the number of people who weren't repaying across the two different groups. And unsurprisingly, the group that had been receiving the SMSs had double the number of people repaying, or half the PAR as the group that hadn't. So a huge impact, very cost efficient, and very easy to do. And that's just provided as standard as part of the Musoni system. If we go next, please. One of the other things we've added is we know that in financial organizations there's a huge amount of manual paperwork and bureaucracy. So we've tried to replace all of this with the Musoni app, which is aimed at field officers. And as you can see in the bottom right corner of that slide, it says online mode there. It works in online and offline mode, and it enables field officers to go out and do client registrations, group registrations, loan applications, and viewing all of their reports as well. We're not even piloting. This is being used by 5 organizations across Africa. We've done about 80,000 clients and loans through it. It works incredibly well, and well, it has a huge impact on the efficiency of loan officers. You can cut down your paperwork at your head office and in your branches, and it just allows loan officers to have real-time, accurate information wherever they are. If they're out in the middle of the field, then they can quickly log in, view their reports quickly and easily. So we just click next. I'll talk a little bit about the impact that we've seen of this, because otherwise there's no point in kind of technology for technology's sake. It has to be proven to have an impact. So we've consistently seen that our system provides the incredibly strong foundations for the rapid growth and safe growth of microfinance organizations. So we've got one example there, which is Mama Bahati Foundation in Tanzania. They grew their portfolio by 250%, while at the same time reducing their PAR by 38%, admittedly from quite a high start, within 18 months of switching onto the system. And we see similar stories across all of the MFIs who start using us. The SMS module that I mentioned a moment ago, any organization who starts using this sees very rapid reductions in their PAR. The Musoni app, which you saw a photo of just before, there's just been a study done by Action International, came out a couple of weeks ago, and it showed that in the 3 months before and after introducing the Musoni app into a branch, there was a 68% increase in the loan officer productivity, so the number of clients being served by the loan officer. What I haven't got on the slide, but what's also part of the study that I definitely recommend you check out, is that the app paid for itself within the first year. And it paid for itself and therefore resulted in significant cost savings for the organization by reducing the number of data entry officers a financial organization needed at every one of their branches. And the data entry officers were promoted to loan officers and were able to go out and grow the portfolio, meet with clients, and kind of increase the productivity of the organization rather than spending all of their time in back office entering data into a computer. And apart from all the kind of the actual studies, we get consistently excellent customer feedback, both on the features and functionality in the system, but also on the support that we provide. I think one of the most important things in technology and microfinance is always having someone who you can contact whenever you have a question or whenever something goes wrong. And we have a full-time support team always available. So where do we operate? If you can just click next, Dana, please. So we're 2 years old now, just over 2 years old. And we've expanded from, well, nothing to 34 MFIs across 8 countries in Africa and 1 in Myanmar, actually. Across all of those 34 MFIs, that's 150,000 end clients impacted or so. We've won a number of different technology awards, including most recently one in 2014. Actually, earlier this year in 2015, one of our organizations using the system won a big the Innovation in Technology Award in London. So it's not just us who wins the awards, it's also organizations using Musoni who win them. In February this year, we were appointed the preferred supplier to MFIs in Zimbabwe, which has been a real privilege working with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe and Zambia. And our goal for the rest of this year is to launch in Ghana and Nigeria as well. But if anyone is interested in learning more about Musoni, please do visit our website, just musonisystem.com, and we'd love to speak further. So if you can just jump to the next slide, Dana. So just pulling it back to Mifos then. Obviously, this is a standalone cloud-based core banking system, but in terms of our strategy, we took the Mifos X open source platform and we built the Musoni system on top of it. So it's our own application. We've taken all of our experience of setting up and running an MFI in terms of the workflows, the logic, the reports, and we've built them on top of the Mifos platform using the underlying logic that's already in Mifos, so that we didn't have to go and kind of reinvent the wheel, as it were. And on top of that, we've added all of the technology that I've just described, things like the mobile money integrations, the SMS app, so SMS module, the tablet application, things like that, to make it really, really kind of useful for MFIs wanting to use technology to improve their efficiency. It's licensed to organizations around the world on a SaaS licensing model, so we charge based on the number of clients that an organization serves. And it is proprietary, so it's not open source, a lot of the stuff that we showed you today. However, we've been working with Mifos since, I think, early 2013, before we actually launched as a company. And we're now a Mifos X Gold partner, and a huge amount of the work that we do and our development team does, we contribute back to the open source platform so that everyone gets a chance to benefit from it. And it's an absolute privilege working with the Mifos X team and community. Why have we taken this approach? What are the advantages? Well, one thing I mentioned a moment ago, it's speed to market. So when we decided we wanted to launch our own core banking system, we didn't want to spend a huge amount of time building the underlying logic that all financial organizations or financial systems need. The Mifos X system was already there. It was already open source, and it's a really, really good core platform. So we wanted to take advantage of that and then bring our own experiences and expertise in terms of mobile money and tablet apps and put that on top of it. So it's a very symbiotic partnership. Aside from that, there's a really nice active community within Mifos. And while we have a lot of experience of sub-Saharan African microfinance, in particular in East and Southern Africa, we don't know very much about Indian microfinance, for example, or Latin American microfinance. And being part of this community allows us to speak and work with other experts from all around the world, and we can learn a huge amount about the differences between microfinance and technical requirements all around the world. So it's a real learning experience for us. And finally, we're a social impact organization. So our goal is all about extending financial inclusion. And we believe that we can do that through the Musoni system, but we also love the idea that any organization out there can come along, can download Mifos, and can, for free, get access to a fantastic core banking system. So that's why we do it. And I'll leave it there and hand back over to you, Dana, I think.
Oh, Cameron, thank you so very much. I really love the work that you've done on top of the Mifos platform and just the mission of getting out and to financially include the world. Your platform is very, very impactful, and I love watching the really quick growth. What I'd like to do now is remind people that if they have questions, put that into the chat box, and then I want to just run through quite quickly a few screenshots of what Mifos X looks like straight out of the box. That's with no customization, no app built on top of it. Just this is what you get in the download. And of course, I'm going to show you all of our open tools that we have available to close that last mile. As Steve Thompson said, when I first became involved with the Mifos organization, I said, you know, you guys, this technology is really great. What is your cashier, what keys are your cashiers going to touch to make this happen? It was like, oh yeah, so we put together a full toolkit to close that mile. So as we saw in the beginning, this is another member customer view. Very quick snapshot. We have a full accrual accounting package with all your accounting requirements built into the download. Your organization is completely configurable. The thing I like about the Mifos X platform is, you know, from my background, I did a number of computer conversions. I did a number of data processing system searches back in the day, and I always had to adjust a little something about our operations to fit the technology. With this, no. The technology is designed to be completely configurable to fit your organization's operation methodologies, and it does include internal controls in the configuration files. And of course, all your products that you may want to offer, and the charge, all that is completely configurable. Again, the system meets your needs. You don't bend to meet its needs. Love that about this. For any of those who want a full system demo, we're having one week from today. Everyone will be getting an email after this with a link to the recording that you could share around, and there'll be the registration link for the hands-on demo for anyone who wants to take a deeper dive. In addition to the platform, I briefly mentioned we have our tools to success. We have those tools that those end users need to take it that last mile. Take it to quality member service, quality customer service. All of your technical people will want to be looking at the developer zone. This is all the techie stuff that us operations people go, okay, thanks guys, we'll take it from here. So your technical people will want this. We have our user manual available online for your system admins and your end users. And then the best practices toolkit. So many times people will say, well, we have this new system, so now we can do these things, but how do I write the policies? What are the procedures? What forms do I use? We have samples out there. The documents can be downloaded and customized. So there's a starting point. Is it the perfect? No. But, you know, there's sample forms. Where do I start? And that's always kind of one of the hang-ups. And we also have the YouTube videos that are hands-on demonstration snippets for staff training. So we've tried to make this a full circle from the open technology to getting it into your brand new hire teller's hands. And of course, as Steve was saying, any of that operational expertise. If we have operations people skipping through some of this documentation, you see a hole, fix it. Takes an hour of time maybe, and a little extra form would be really helpful to a lot of people. So now, Craig, I think he's on. I'm going to bring our Craig Chilius. He's the executive director of Mifos, and he's going to talk a little bit about paying it forward and how do we really do what we need to do. So, Craig?
Hello.
Hello.
Well, thank you. Yes, thank you all for attending, and thank you, Steve and Cameron and Dana, for giving a great introduction to our guests on Mifos. I think if ever two movements were meant to work together, it's the credit union movement and Mifos. We have a shared mission to end poverty. And as Steve showed you, we have shared principles, which include member control and independence and openness and education and global cooperation. So we do hope on our part here at the Mifos Initiative that this is the beginning of a very productive partnership between Mifos and the global credit union movement. Together we can accomplish a lot. Even more exciting, both our initiatives represent the future. And I say that about the credit union movement, knowing your long history and your rich tradition, but we still, in fact, both are the future. Ending poverty based on financial inclusion, with savings being the leading feature, is the future of financial services. And the credit union movement is leading that charge to bring an end to poverty and bring financial services to the 2.5 billion who are unbanked. Mifos technology and our platform is the future of financial services. You're all going to be moving into this brave new world of digital, cloud-based, mobile services. And you saw what Musoni's accomplished with that, which is absolutely astonishing, and that's just the beginning of the impact that Musoni will have. You may have heard Musoni describe themselves as a microfinance-focused institution. But whether it's microfinance or credit unions or SACCOs, the Mifos platform addresses the functionality you need, but it's a modern platform that's digital and cloud-based and mobile from the get-go. So when you adopt Mifos, you will be enabled and aligned for really the amazing 10 years that we're all about to experience in financial services. So we urge you to critically examine Mifos, and I think you will find it not only meets but exceeds your needs, and you will find a community of support that enables you to be successful. And so I would ask all of you to join with us and join in promoting the adoption of Mifos so we can all together complete our missions for ending poverty through financial inclusion. And you've heard from Steve and Dana, there's so many different ways to get involved. To jump into that critical examination, I'd urge you all to come see Dana's in-depth hands-on demo of the software, and let's take it from there. So thank you very much. If you'd like to address the questions, we want to make sure everyone has a chance to get their questions answered.
I've collected all the questions from the chat, and please continue to send those through. And then if you have any you'd verbally like to make or respond to, we can unmute you and let you go forward with that. So the first question we got is for you, Steve, and Sarah was wondering, how are the credit unions currently innovating to reach the poorest in the United States? So Steve, did you want to cover that one?
I might be able to give a little more insight if you're not comfortable with the he's a Canadian. We have two really interesting projects going on right now in the United States that came to us kind of out of the blue, if you will. People found us. One credit union in Virginia, and I believe Dan's on the call here with us today, they've downloaded Mifos, and they've set up a sample credit union, a test credit union, a credit union for kids. It's a 7th and 8th graders, so 12, 13-year-olds. They're teaching business practices, and all the little businesses get set up in their little pretend town, and they have their model credit union. And then they've used Mifos to not only teach credit union principles to these kids, but they've also set it up as a corporate credit union for all the businesses. So it's a really interesting, impactful way to use Mifos X as a training tool, which was so unique. We do have another organization in Buffalo, New York, who's assessing Mifos X as a platform for a startup credit union. And coincidentally enough, another organization, another credit union in New York State, it's over in Rochester, they have a very, very, very large immigrant community. This community couldn't qualify for loans in the traditional manner because of our ties to the credit bureaus and so on. And they kind of said, okay, we're still going to give you credit union services. You still need financial services. And they have a very nice loan portfolio that is performing extremely well. The regulators are not happy because it's outside the box thinking, but the loss ratios on that portfolio are, 0.03, so pretty much no losses. So there are some credit unions that I'm aware of looking at different ways to financially include the U.S. poor and unserved. But beyond those 3 examples, I don't have a lot. So next.
Okay, and then I'll move into a few of the questions we had directly geared towards Cameron. So Cameron, if you want to respond to a couple of these. So first off, one was just, how do we obtain the Musoni app, and what is the cost for acquiring the Musoni app?
The Musoni app is just provided as standard alongside the Musoni system. So if you're using the Musoni system, then you get the Musoni app alongside it, basically. It's not charged separately. In fact, all of the different functionality that I mentioned today is all just part of the core system, so it's all part of the main pricing. And we charge based on the number of clients in the organization, starting off at €3 per client per year.
Okay, thanks, Cameron. And then there was a couple centered around the availability of the Musoni system. So one was, is it available in America, and how much does it cost? And then likewise, Kizia saw that Musoni was in Kenya and was wondering if this was the same organization.
Firstly, to Antonio Manueli's question, is Musoni available in America? Yes, absolutely. You can use Musoni anywhere where you have a computer and an internet connection. So that's all you need to be able to access it and use it. The only reason we've focused so much on Africa is our background and experience has been microfinance in Africa. And there's obviously a huge need for extending financial inclusion there, which is where we've focused. However, we are always open to speaking with people from other markets. And so if you'd like to learn more, just please send me a direct message and we can take this offline.
Okay.
For the other question to Keziah Philbitts, I see Musoni in Kenya. I assume you're talking about the microfinance organization Musoni in Kenya. That was actually founded by myself and a number of other people back in 2009. I was quite a junior founder at that stage. And our goal then was to set up a microfinance organization that used technology to improve efficiency. I moved into the IT team, and we focused more and more on how technology, independently of the microfinance organization, could, or at least with other MFIs, could improve financial inclusion. And so we spun off from the microfinance organization about 3 years ago, and now are an independent software company. So Musoni in Kenya use our software alongside the other 34 MFIs using it.
Okay, and then Emmanuel also had the question around, do we recommend switching to Musoni or continuing to use Mifos X as it is? So we can both respond. I'll let you respond first, Cameron. So.
Do you want to go for it, Ed?
Yeah. So I think it really depends on your operational needs, Emmanuel, based on the level of familiarity you have with technology and the software, and if you need to have more best practice experience in place and have a higher level of support than you might get from just using the general community app and Mifos software. So you're welcome to continue using Mifos X as is with support from the community and support from a local partner, or if you need a more hands-on relationship and a unique workflow in the Musoni app that you saw today, it might be best for you to use the Musoni system. So I'll let you.
And just to add on to that, thanks, Ed. I think that was a very good summary. Just to add on to that, obviously there are some differences in the functionality in the UI, and so it kind of depends on what your personal preference is. But mainly it is down to whether you are up for, or basically you would like to download the open source software, manage the installation and hosting of it, and rely on the community for support, or use the Musoni version of it, where there's a full-time development team responding to any requirements that you have, any support issues that you have. You can always reach out and ask us any questions or ask us to add new functionality. And then it also depends on how much you're really looking to do things like integration with mobile, SMS, tablet apps, because that's available in Musoni. And over time, our plan is to also release that back to the open source community, but it'll work at the right time, I think.
Thanks, Cameron. And Craig, did you have anything you wanted to add around the?
No, you guys are doing a great job answering.
Okay. Yeah, and then we had one question from Jacques, which is for everyone on the call, but geared towards you as well, Cameron. So just about cloud services in East Africa with Musoni system. How stable and reliable is it? Financial services in general. And are there any issues with banking and finance in the cloud?
If anything, I would argue it's much more secure. Most financial organizations in East Africa tend to kind of host, if you're using a traditional system, you're often hosting it in a relatively insecure data room, which could be freely accessible to the IT team or anyone who's able to break in. Often there aren't backups stored in a separate geographical location, and therefore you're completely reliant upon this kind of one data room. By contrast, at Musoni, we host with Amazon Web Services in Ireland, I think the leading hosting provider in the world. And through that, we obviously maintain all of the security protocols, the ISO certifications, and all of the additional kind of safety and security features that a best practice platform would expect to have. In terms of connectivity, majority of our organizations work in remote rural areas. So very, very low bandwidth connections. We've done a lot of work on Musoni to make it appropriate for those environments. And actually, in East Africa and the markets that we operate in, we don't experience any negative feedback on this. We think the connectivity is easily good enough. We recommend between 1 and 2 megabits per second, but we have some MFIs using it on less, and it still works well. So you do need an internet connection, and obviously the better your internet connection is, the better your experience will be, but you don't need a very good internet connection. This is a system built for remote, low bandwidth rural communities.
Thanks, Cameron. And that covers a bit of your question, Elias, which centered around operating in rural environments and how open source cloud-based systems work in these communities. And for those that are still challenged, to use a PC or a browser to access a cloud-based solution, we are continuing to build more offline capabilities into our various mobile apps. So you have that added level of reach to your customers when connectivity is down.
Yeah, that's a good extra point. On Musoni, the actual browser of the system is only available in online mode, but the tablet application, which we're assuming is used by loan officers, that works in offline mode as well. So our assumption there is that in your branches or in your head office, you will have a reliable enough internet connection, but your loan officers are far less likely to have that, and therefore the software we've built for them works in offline mode as well.
Okay. And I'm now going to cover some of the general questions that have come up. So first off, from Terry, was just wondering where the name MIFOS came from. So originally, Mifos was an acronym that stood for Microfinance Open Source, But as we've broadened the reach of the technology to support all forms of financial inclusion, we've just adopted the name Mifos as the brand and identity of the initiative, and it's no longer that acronym. And then Hamilton was wondering if we had the sample forms and policies, etc., in other languages. And Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think with these, the best practice toolkit, this is still just available in English. But as Steve was mentioning, we're always looking for volunteers, and that would be a great way to get involved, is to begin translating the operational toolkits and other best practice guides into local languages.
Absolutely, I do have some translation support, but my goodness, yes, we could use a lot more translation. And I'm happy to hear from anyone who wants to help with that.
Okay.
That'd be great, thank you.
And then Yilebes had a question that also centered around localization regarding the architecture. And thank you to Vince, who sent a link directly to the translation messages from our source code repository. And Mifos is extremely, it's extremely easy to localize. So we partner with a community called translatewiki.net. They handle all the translations for MediaWiki, which maintains Wikipedia, so hundreds of languages around the world. And so every line of the user interface in our software is available to be translated online from their website. So you could translate it into any language that you'd like, and then it'll be automatically merged into our code base and available for everybody in the global community to access. So we've got a good, easy way for you to get involved in volunteering on translations, or if you need a new language, you can request someone in our community or translatewiki.net to support that. And then Uya had a question just about the naming and versioning conventions, like was there a big jump from 1.26 to 15.03? And thank you to Terrence who replied about that. And so we recently adopted, a new numbering logic for our versions, so you can deduce the date from each version. So now each release will have the year, and then it'll have the month. So the remaining releases for this year will be 15.9 and 15.12, and then as we move into 2016, the releases will be 16. Whatever month it is. And Giovanni had a question regarding the migration process, and is training or support provided on that issue? So across the community, we have a number of tools and documentations available to help in the support and migration process. And then we have a global network of local partners who can provide more hands-on assistance in cleaning up your data and writing scripts to get the data in. And Cameron can probably respond with how they do data migration as well. So.
Yeah, as you said, it's something that we typically do with any organisation coming on board. We work with you to both clean up your existing data and import it into the system, so that you don't lose any of your past history when you're getting started.
Okay, and then Willis Ochieng, he had a question around our standard prices in place for Mifos X local partners to charge for their prospective clients. And so we do have, some suggested pricing in place that we recommend to our partners, but it really does, depend on the local market conditions and the reputation you've built in the marketplace on what you should and can charge for your services related to the Mifos X community app and open source platform. And we do regularly host partner-wide roundtable calls across the community to discuss, pricing experiences in the local markets, so you can get a better sense of that. But it really is driven by the local market conditions and what you feel customers could potentially support. And then there's some more questions coming in right now, so I'm just going to start covering those. So Tom had a question around tracking other investments in Mifos. And so Mifos, at its core, centers around the core financial inclusion products, savings, loan products, insurance products, but it is, very client-centric, and you can add additional services or products on top of that. So depending on, what level of information and workflows you need to track around your investments, Tom, you likely could configure it in the default Mifos X solution, or you could make some customizations, because we have seen some of our community members do some pretty creative and innovative uses of the core Mifos software outside of financial inclusion. And then Giovanni was asking if Mifos had a money laundering alert in place. And so we don't currently have that feature, shipping out of the box within the community app, but we do have on our roadmap having some better integration with some of the anti-money laundering softwares and AML tools. But Mifos, is very flexible in terms of being able to set up notifications and alerts based on various events that happen. So it is something that could be, customized and configured based on your requirements by leveraging the extensibility of the core platform itself, as well as our webhook frameworks to connect to other systems. And then Aliyu had a question just centering around the need for limiting the account numbers to only 10 digits, as that was a requirement by the central bank. And so with any requirements like this that come up, we add them to the feature requests that come through the community and try and prioritize them to our community roadmap or identify a local partner who could potentially build this out. So one such example is the need we had for configurable account prefixes, and that was a feature that was then developed and shared with the rest of the community. So Aliyu, we'll try and collect more of those requirements and then make sure it goes into the prioritization queue for the roadmap. And then Aliyu also had a question centering around integration with other payment systems within Nigeria, like InterSwitch. And so I'll respond to this at a community level, and then perhaps Cameron could respond a bit more about how they've integrated with some of the mobile money providers. So over the coming year, it's our goal to help financial institutions get connected and be ready to offer digital financial services on a much larger scale. So we're beginning to integrate with the most common payment standards like ISO 222, as well as the others. And then we're working with local partners to gather requirements for the integrations with the payment switches within each of their countries and beginning to make this a much easier process for each partner around. And Cameron, did you want to respond a bit on what you've done with mobile money?
We do. Sorry, am I online? Yeah. So we do lots and lots of different integrations with mobile network operators, with local payment switches, with credit scoring companies in the different markets that we operate in. A few examples are TransUnion in Kenya, who are a credit bureau, FCB in Zimbabwe, who are a credit bureau, PayNet in Zimbabwe, who are a local payment switch or banking switch. We've integrated with Salesforce, and with roughly 8 different mobile network operators. So we're always looking for which integrations make the most sense for those organizations using our platform. And the reason we haven't done any in Nigeria yet is we don't have any clients in Nigeria yet. However, we are aiming to launch in Nigeria this year. And in about a month, we will have one of my team, a guy called Jacob, deployed down in Lagos, and he will be on the ground looking to launch Musoni on the ground there. So I'm hoping we'll be able to pick up some of the Nigerian integrations then.
Thanks, Cameron. Yeah, and I think the ability for Musoni Services to integrate Musoni system with all those various systems, centers around the extensibility of our platform. So you can easily build your own solution via the APIs, or if you need to connect to an external system, we have a comprehensive web and code hooks framework for easily integrating to those incoming data requests that would be coming through. And then we had another question from Jacques just around what are the main future improvements the Mifos users can expect in the next year, and likewise for Musoni system. And so for Mifos, we're going to be entering into a process that's community-wide right now as we look to plan the roadmap for 2016 and beyond. So stay tuned for some community-wide meetings as we gather feedback and prioritize the different requirements that are coming up. And for the rest of 2015, we do have our surveys framework, which will include the PPI integration that will be coming through into the platform. We're also going to be building out some new features around flexibility around loan schedules to fully support agricultural loans and other variable installment lending products. And then Cameron, did you want to? Oh, sorry, Dana.
If I may interject just one moment, we're at the end of the hour, and I just want to first thank everyone for joining us, and second, let everyone know that we're going to stay on as long as you have questions, but I do genuinely appreciate everyone attending today. I will be sending out the recorded session, including all the questions that will be coming up as we go along here in the next few minutes, and the link to the hands-on demo. So thanks, everyone. And I'm sorry I interrupted right in the middle of a Cameron Ed. So I'll
thanks,
pass
Dana.
it back to you for the answer. Thanks, Ed.
Okay. Oh, and Cameron, did you want to reply to Jacques around what are some of the upcoming features in the Musoni system?
Yeah, there are absolutely loads, but some of the more interesting ones, I suppose, are the ability to handle things like top-up loans and flexible repayment schedules. Alongside that, more functionality around share modules for SACCOs to make it easier for you to pay out your dividends to all of your clients. And then on the mobile side, we're launching a client-facing app as well. So an app that any end client can log into on their smartphone and see their savings balance, see their outstanding loan balance, and do transfers between their different accounts. That's hopefully going to be piloted in Kenya in the next few months, and then we will launch that across all of our MFIs after that.
Thank you, Cameron. And then Willis had another question around FOSA and banking operations supported in Mifos X, the community edition. And Cameron, are you familiar with the term FOSA?
No.
Okay, if Willis, if you're still on, if you could type in a few more details around what requirement that is, and we'll try to respond to it. And then Wilson was just wondering if there was going to be any community meeting in 2015. And so each year, we hold a global summit. So our global summit, which was held in March of this year, won't be till March of 2016, but we're looking to hold some regional events and in the fall of this year, Wilson. So stay tuned about whether or not there might be a regional event in your region this upcoming year. I think we've covered the majority of the questions, just making sure we haven't missed anything. And Sarah then had a question just around the global meeting and what region would it be. And we're still determining that right now, Sarah, but likely it's going to be somewhere that's fairly central and accessible for all of our community. So we're still yet to determine that, but we'll announce it as soon as we have a location in mind. So. Yes, and just regarding, if this webinar session will be available later on. So Dana will send out a link to the video recording of this session. We'll also send out a link to the slides. And then in 1 week's time, there is going to be a functional demonstration of the community app. So if you liked what you saw from some of the screenshots or liked what Cameron was speaking to in terms of features in the core platform that you can leverage, we're going to be doing a full functional demonstration of the community app where you'll see all the functionalities in their glory. And then if you have technical questions, we are always eager to onboard new technical partners or contributors and can set up a separate technical onboarding with one of the lead members of our development team so you can familiarize yourself with the architecture and APIs of the Mifos X platform. So I think unless there are any other questions from our audience, I'll wrap up the question and answer portion, and thank you for everybody for the good questions you had and the active participation in this webinar. So,
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
again, everyone.
Thank you, everyone else.
okay, Dana, do you want to send a parting farewell to everyone? So.
Yes, it's the grand farewell. No, I really appreciate everyone participating in the presentations, the great questions, and for joining us today on the webinar. And as we all said, we'll be doing the hands-on demo. We will be giving you a link that you can share like mad as much as possible. And in that email where you'll get the link, you'll have our contact information and links to our toolkits. So thank you all so very much, and I will be closing out the session now. Have a good day, everyone.